Alright, Proposition 37 deals with whether we should label genetically modified foods or not. And this has been a rising concern ever since about now 70 to 75% of all the foods sold in grocery stores contain genetically modified foods. And we can't tell whether it's organic or genetically modified. And the main concern behind the Proposition 37 is whether if it's healthy or safe for us to eat. And we're not the only ones eating this, or our animals, which is not something brought up to most voters, and also how it's impacting our environment. So, in this speech, I'm going to inform you guys how it's impacting us, how it's impacting our animals, such as our pets or farm-grown animals, and also how it's impacting the environment. So, since there's been a rising consumption of genetically modified foods, there has also been the rise of concern whether it's safe. And many scientists have been researching to prove whether it is safe or not to eat. And a researcher named Jose Javier Magaña, who is a professor at the highest rated institute in Mexico for biochemistry, he has done many studies, short-term studies on humans to see if there are any health effects. And even though his studies have not shown any major health consequences while consuming genetically modified foods, he has shown that there has been an increase in allergic reactions, and also there has not been any long-term studies simply because genetically modified foods have not been introduced commercially only until like 15 or 10 years ago. And also, since there's this lack of research just to see whether it is safe or not, it's one of the reasons why all the countries in Europe have banned it, because there is not enough evidence to show whether it's safe to eat. And as I mentioned, we're not the only ones eating these genetically modified foods. Our animals are also eating this, or farm animals are being grown with them. And the most common here in the United States is chicken, simply because everyone it's in high demand for their meat, and they're mostly grown with growth hormone, where they increase their growth rate from 3 even 4 times their normal rate, and sometimes they get so big where they can't even hold their own body weight. And the researcher Javier Magaña has also studied how genetically modified foods have been affecting chickens, and he tested it out using modified corn, and his studies have shown that the chickens grown with modified corn have shown a dramatic increase in chest skin growth. And I mean, it's not a major problem, but he claims it is something we should take into consideration, since we are also eating similar type of corn. And the other common animals that are grown with modified foods are cows. And cows are sometimes grown with a hormone called RBGH, which not necessarily helps them grow faster, but produce more milk. And a researcher named Saleria, who is a professor at the number 2 ranked institution in Pakistan for biotechnology, she has researched how it's affecting cows, growing them with that same hormone. And she has shown in her studies that cows are not necessarily affected with these hormones, except that she has found traces of the hormone in the milk, and that can in turn affect the consumers of the milk. And that's what the current research is going on right now. And also, we are also feeding our pets these type of foods that we don't even know it. A well-known vet named Michael Fox was also author for an article, a column called Pet Doctor. He states that we are feeding our pets with these foods and we don't even know it now. A lot of pet food companies are putting genetically modified foods in the food as fillers, such as genetically modified corn and soy. And he said that naturally, like dogs and cats are allergic to these type of foods and can even sometimes cause death. So he's been researching feeding cats and dogs with the modified corn and soy, and he has shown that there has been a dramatic increase of allergic reactions and even immune deficiencies, which is very bad for our animals. And since it's making a big impact on our animals, it's also making a big impact on our environment, and which is not something that's being brought up to voters. The main concern today for scientists is cross-pollination, simply because organic crops are being grown next to an organic crop, to genetically modified crops, and it's easy to cross-pollinate between an organic and genetically modified crop, causing hybrids, and that's what researchers today are trying to see whether hybrid fruits are going to impact our health more than just a normal genetically modified fruit. And there have been studies conducted by Solaria who claims that pollen can be traced to travel about 200 meters from its place of origin, which leads to big problems occurring with cross-pollination. And a researcher named David Quist actually studied this to see how much can be cross-pollinated. So he planted a crop of corn isolated from any other genetically modified corn in the middle of Mexico, and then later when it was time to harvest, he tested out all the offspring, and he found out that some of his organic corn had genetically modified material in it, which leads to big concerns of how much of what's considered organic today is actually modified due to cross-pollination. And most of the studies today tested on hybrids do not show any increase in like allergic reactions or any other health consequences, but scientists do warn or suggest that they believe that allergic reactions could be worse simply because there is a mixture of organic DNA and genetically modified. And these are something that we should take into consideration when even buying what's called organic food, because there might be a hybrid. And so now I informed you about the major health concerns behind Proposition 37, and so I informed you how it's affecting us, what current studies are showing about how it's affecting us, how it's affecting our animals, and also how it's affecting the environment. So now knowing this, you guys will be able to decide whether you believe labeling should be considered or not.